When I've spoken to some college players recently, and especially upperclassmen, and especially on the women's side, and the non-elite teams, I'm hearing a constant refrain about the coaches, and that is that the coaches don't really know how to teach or instruct or really help the players or the team, and instead most of the feedback or instruction that they're receiving from the coaches is simply play harder and punishment. So if something goes wrong, they get punished, whether it's practice or a game. There's punishment. So you're coming out of the game if you make a mistake. In practice, we're on the line, we're running sprints, but there's no real instruction or feedback in terms of correcting that mistake. What went wrong? How can we fix it? How can we make sure that you don't make that mistake again? Instead, the answer is simply, okay, you don't get to play as much anymore, or you're on the bench, or we're just going to run sprints and hope that, just by punishing you, you're going to figure out the answer on your own and you're not going to make that mistake again. And so essentially, to me, when I see those types of behaviors, it's because the coach believes that the players don't care. And so to make them care, they're going to give them this alternative of punishment. So if you don't care about making the right pass or not turning the ball over, then I'm going to punish you. I'm not going to play you as much anymore. I'm going to put you on the bench until you start to care about taking care of the ball. In practice, if you don't take care of the ball, I'm going to make you run, and then hopefully you'll get sick of running, and then when you play again, you'll care more about taking care of the ball. And to me, again, I don't think the most mistakes come from a lack of caring. I do believe that players care. I do believe that players are trying to improve. I do believe that in most cases, players are trying to do their best. Sometimes players need to be taught, what their best could be, how they could make themselves better, what they need to do better, how they need to improve. They need to, in some cases, be taught the difference between how they view themselves and how the coach views themselves, or how their teammates view themselves. Because there could be a discrepancy in terms of how a player sees him or herself in terms of being a good player or taking care of the ball or sharing the ball, and how the teammates view that player. Maybe they view the player as being selfish or not taking it seriously, or whatever the case may be. There may be a discrepancy there between how a coach views a player or how teammates view a player. And in some cases, maybe there needs to be instruction or feedback, or communication there that enables the player to see that difference. Maybe they just lack awareness of themselves and they need to understand that. But to me, that's different than not caring. It could be. And if you introduce this idea that, well, how you view yourself or how you view this decision is different than the coaching staff or the players, and then that player just, doesn't care, well, then you have your answer. But I think in most cases, it's more a lack of awareness of how one plays or how one looks. Because I've had this discussion with a number of players over the years in terms of body language. Your body language is negative towards your teammates, and your teammates don't like that. What? I don't do anything. Yeah, here, let's show you on tape with your shoulders slumped, and head forward as soon as a teammate makes a mistake. That teammate sees that, and they see that you're frustrated. And so you show them, make them aware of that, which to me has more value than simply punishing them. Because if I just punish that player every time that she drops her head or he drops his head, but I don't make the player aware of those behaviors, I just say, oh, you have bad body language, and they say, no, I don't, and I say, yes, you do, run, we haven't gotten to a solution. That player's probably going to make that same mistake again because the player lacks the awareness of his or her body language. So instead of just assuming that it's a player who doesn't care, we need to instruct. And so I keep hearing these situations of coaches who their answer for every problem, whether it's behavioral or technical, tactical, is just play harder, or I'm going to punish you, I'm going to punish you. And I wonder what we're doing as coaches and what we're learning as coaches and how we're developing as coaches. Because to me, that's not coaching. As I believe I've said before on here, making a practice hard is the easiest thing to do. All you do is increase the intensity, increase the volume to a point where players can't handle it. So if they're used to, a 2 hour practice of high intensity, well, now you make it a 3 hour practice of high intensity. If they're used to, going through a drill at 90% speed, you go at 100% speed. You push them beyond what they're currently capable of doing, and that makes a practice harder. But that doesn't mean that they're getting better. It doesn't mean that we're addressing mistakes. It doesn't mean that we're teaching anything. We're just punishing players. Essentially, we're trying to make it harder. We're trying to push them far beyond their physical capabilities now, and that tends to be where injuries happen as well, because we've adapted to a certain intensity and volume of exercise over a week or a month or a day, depending on what we're looking at. And if that has too steep of an increase on a daily basis or a weekly basis, that's where a player can get injured from that steep increase of either volume or intensity. So rather than improving players, now we're potentially just injuring them. So now we have to go to maybe backups or deeper on the bench or whatever the case may be. So I think if the answer to every question is play harder or punishment, I don't think we're coaching. I think we need to do more to give instruction, to give feedback, to get to the source of a mistake or a problem, whether it's behavioral or skill-wise, and figure out how to improve that environment, how to help the players learn, how to help the players see the mistakes. And to me, that's coaching. It's problem solving. It's seeing a problem, figuring out a solution, trying that solution, seeing if it works, going back, trying something new, seeing if that works, and helping players to find answers and find ways for themselves to improve, as opposed to just putting every mistake or every poor performance off to not playing hard enough and or just punishing players for their perceived lack of effort or their perceived lack of caring.